Chapter 13. Ecological Concern and Global Peace. Who has not reveled in the breathtaking beauty of a sunset, or the myriad stars sparkling on a cold, clear night, or the almost magical shades and shadows playing on the silhouettes of distant mountains at dusk, or the delicate pastels that paint the desert at sunrise, or the sun sparkling on rivers and lakes? And who has not stood motionless to watch in fascination and wonder some of the endless variety of creatures that this planet boasts? Words fail to describe the attractive loveliness of this earth, yet its ungrateful inhabitants have been systematically abusing it, and are only now awakening to the fact that they are destroying the environments upon which their very life and survival depends. And even after that realization has taken hold, there has been a reluctance to face the gravity of the situation and to engage in the necessary action. Consequently, ecological collapse is a far greater threat than most people realize, and time could be running out. In contrast to mankind's belated ecological awareness, biblical prophecy anticipated this problem thousands of years ago and indicated that God's judgment would fall as a result. A major purpose of the judgment to be poured out upon the earth, as John saw it in the vision recorded in Revelation, would be to destroy them which destroy the earth. Revelation 11, verse 18. A number of God's judgments are ecological in nature, devastating the grass and trees and polluting the oceans and rivers. The implication is that man has brought the dire consequences upon himself. With the opening of closed borders, it is only now coming to light that the pollution in some areas of Eastern Europe is beyond any short-term remedy. Forests have died, rivers and lakes have become chemical cesspools, crops hopelessly contaminated, farm animals diseased, and thousands of children face premature death. Air pollution in southern Poland has reached such deadly levels that the government is considering issuing gas masks to the citizenry. Widespread emergency measures must be taken immediately, but Eastern Europe lacks both the funds and the technology to address the problem. Pollution knows no borders, so the West must step in to help both with expertise and huge expenditures. Of course, the West has its own severe environmental problems. Autopsies on young children who die in auto accidents in the Los Angeles area reveal that their lungs are blackened and their arteries clogged. And so it goes throughout the industrialized world. Each year, another 1,000 species are exterminated in what biologists have termed nothing less than a holocaust of nature. We need not cite further details. It is sufficient for our purposes to recognize that the global ecological crisis we face has the potential to unite mankind in a common international cause. Thus, the environmental movement could play a significant role in bringing the unity essential to the rise of Antichrist. Global peace is the key. A genuine peace would not only remove the threat of a nuclear holocaust and further contamination of nuclear testing, but it would be the only means of cleaning up the environment. With closed borders, the extent of pollution could not be known, and there could never be the international cooperation that is required for a sound ecology. Furthermore, with the untold billions of dollars, and so much manpower still committed to war preparedness, the wherewithal would be lacking to rescue the environment in time. Global unity is thus essential to human survival, and it will be adopted on that basis. The world desperately needs assurance of lasting peace, so that it can take the resources until now committed to the manufacture of instruments of destruction, and instead use them to rescue planet Earth and to give her inhabitants a better life. Fortunately, the realization that the weapons we now have could bring an end to civilization as we know it acts as a tremendous deterrent to war and provides a powerful motivation to settle our differences. Still, there is the lust for power on the part of leaders and the fear of enemy attack. Yet at least we are moving in the right direction, but will it prove to be too little, too late? Dwight D. Eisenhower reportedly said, "Indeed, I think that people want peace so much that one of these days governments had better get out of their way and let them have it." We have just seen oppressive communist regimes in Eastern Europe forced to get out of the way of millions of ordinary citizens who marched in the streets and otherwise let it be known that they would settle for nothing less than freedom and democracy. There is now a growing groundswell of a similar grassroots movement of hundreds of millions of determined people around the world, demanding an immediate solution to these two interrelated issues of ecology and peace. Perhaps the time of which Eisenhower spoke has come at last, and not a moment too soon. As we have seen, after ignoring the ecumenical movement for years, political leaders have recently begun to realize the importance of religious unity if the desired new world order is to be achieved. The result has been a significant new partnership between government and religion, very much like Constantine established, an important step in preparing the world for the revival of the Roman Empire and its coming political religious leader. The motivation is good: peace and environmental protection, common concerns of great importance around which all religions can ecumenically unite. The World Council of Churches has now decided that the major test of orthodoxy is one's position on the environment. Unfortunately, Jesus Christ, without whom there can be no real peace or ecological healing, is left out of the deliberations. Why? Has he been proved a fraud? No. It is simply that the issue of truth is now considered irrelevant. It would not be in keeping with the tolerant ecumenism of the New World Order to acknowledge Christ's unique claims. Nor do quote-unquote Christians who join the peace and environmental movements present Christ in the context of such issues. Thus the door is opened for the Antichrist to bring his solution. Laying the foundation for the coming world religion, ecological concerns are being expressed increasingly, even by the atheists, in spiritual, pantheistic New Age terms, as though the universe were a living and even conscious entity. The Gaia hypothesis, with whom we must make peace and live in harmony. At the January 1990 Moscow Global Forum, already referred to, physicist Fritjof Capra said that spirituality is common to all humanity. He then defined spirituality as the experience of being connected to the cosmos as a whole that gives meaning to life. Yet if one denies the intelligent, purposeful creator God of the Bible and opts for vague, impersonal, creative forces, as one must in the New World Order, then the cosmos has no purpose and life no meaning. In his plenary address at the same Moscow conference, U.S. Senator Al Gore declared, quote, "I do not see how the environmental problem can be solved without reference to spiritual values found in every faith," unquote. He was not referring to biblical Christianity, which is unique, but to an ecumenical spirituality based upon what he called, quote, "a new faith in the future of life on earth, providing higher values in the conduct of human affairs," unquote. Confirming the direction in which we are heading, the final Moscow Declaration called for a global council of spiritual leaders and the creation of an interfaith prayer, a new spiritual and ethical basis for human activities on earth. Humankind must enter into a new communion with nature. On the contrary, humankind must get back in touch not with nature itself, but with nature's creator. Planetary pollution is the result of the pollution of sin in the human soul. There is only one solution: the blood of Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God, poured out upon the cross in payment of the penalty for sin demanded by God's justice. All the talk about spiritual values is like a salve to the conscience, mere tokenism, tipping one's hat to whatever God there may be, a delusion of Satan to blind mankind to the real problem. Quote-unquote spiritual values is a vague term that no one defines, yet everyone seems pleased with themselves for using it, as though common ground for uniting science and religion has been found and something meaningful has been communicated. In fact, neither is true. Spiritual values is another form of the emperor's new clothes. No one knows what the term means, yet it has become an integral part of suggested solutions to the world's problems. To put it bluntly, spiritual values is the new shibboleth of the environmental and peace movements. Even some evangelical leaders seem pleased with all the talk about spiritual values. They react as though it indicates that those who use the term are somehow kindred spirits, when in fact They could be atheists and or occultists totally opposed to Christianity, and generally are. England's Prince Philip, co-founder of the World Wildlife Fund, is one of the world's leading environmentalists. World Wildlife Fund funded the start of the Washington, D.C.-based North American Conference on Religion and Ecology, which is determined to recruit the local churches for the environmental movement. It even provided pastors with an Easter Day 1990 sermon that robbed Christ's death and resurrection of its real meaning and turned it into a symbol of the earth's ecological agony and the quote-unquote resurrection that our efforts can effect. North American Conference on Religion and Ecology, which was one of the key sponsors of Earth Day 1990, calls for, quote, a spiritual rebirth of Western man, unquote. Eastern man, through yoga and so forth, is already tuned in as the secret to solving the ecological crisis. Its president, Donald Conroy, declares, quote, if the religious communities around the globe awaken to the ethical and spiritual dimensions of the environmental threat, there is hope for the planet, unquote. In a recent speech at Washington, D.C.'s National Press Club, Prince Philip let it be known that the spiritual values of the environmental movement are not those of biblical Christianity. After declaring, quote, we need a religious and spiritual motive to encourage respect and care for nature, unquote, he went on to argue against Christianity's view of saving souls for eternity. Quote, after all, there can be little advantage in attempting to save souls or in seeking enlightenment or salvation if humanity's very existence on this earth is threatened by its own activities, unquote. The militant and growing Greenpeace movement addresses valid concerns. It is, however, an attempt to bring peace on earth without the Prince of Peace. God put rebellious Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden and guarded the tree of life with the flaming sword of his holy judgment upon sin. Christ took that sword in his heart for us and became the way to the life which he alone is and which he alone can give. Environmentalist movements, for all the good they represent, are attempts to restore mankind to an earthly paradise without reconciliation to God through Christ's redemptive work upon the cross. Prince Philip is representative of the growing numbers of nominal Christians who are turning back to paganism as a result of their ecological concerns. Though his wife, Queen Elizabeth II, is the head of the Church of England, in that same speech at the National Press Club, the Prince said, quote, it is now apparent that the ecological pragmatism of the so-called pagan religions, such as that of the American Indians, Polynesians, Australian Aborigines, was a great deal more realistic in terms of conservation ethics than the more intellectual monotheistic philosophies of the revealed religions, unquote. Thus, ecological concern subtly fosters rejection of the Bible and Christianity. To speak of spirituality and freedom of religion is popular. To suggest that Jesus Christ as the Savior of sinners is mankind's only hope is not tolerated by those who preach tolerance. All religions must join together in a generic pagan spirituality to rescue the planet. Environmental Protection Agency Chief William K. Riley, who calls himself a pure Irish Catholic, proposes a spiritual vision of conservation. Spiritual could mean Hinduism, Buddhism, witchcraft, or Islam, or it could have nothing to do with religion. One could have a spiritual experience at a rock concert, or at an opera, or on an LSD trip. The door is open to anything except evangelical Christianity. In his address to the Moscow Global Forum of Spiritual and Parliamentary Leaders on Human Survival, Mikhail Gorbachev called the conference, quote, a major step in the ecological consciousness of humanity, unquote. He drew cheers from delegates when he pledged, quote, to ban nuclear tests completely, for all times and at any moment, if the U.S. does the same, and to open our territory for inspection, unquote. He went on to call for a new contemporary attitude to nature, returning to man a sense of being a part of nature. Again, it is a pitiful attempt to escape the real issue. Man's problem is not that he is out of touch with nature, but that he is out of touch with God. In fact, he is in rebellion against his Creator. If the God that formed us is nature itself, if we are simply the result of natural forces that have made us what we are, then no matter what we did, it would be natural and could not be considered pollution or exploitation of nature. Nature does not pollute or exploit itself. Whatever nature and her creatures do is a natural act and cannot be faulted. If an earthquake and tidal wave cause a beautiful Pacific island to disappear, there is nothing wrong with that, for there are no morals in nature. It is not wrong for a lion to kill an antelope for lunch, or for beetles or parasites to destroy acres of forest. Then why is it wrong for man to destroy a rainforest or to dump mercury into the ocean, if he is truly the product of evolutionary forces? Would not any act by any man be just as natural as the acts of all other natural creatures? It would be no more wrong for our factories to create pollution than for a volcano to spew its ash and poison gases into the air. Yet we know that we do act against nature. Moreover, we have a conscience about it. That would only be possible if nature is not all there is, but was itself created by a God who is separate and distinct from the universe, and who made man in his image, and to whom man is accountable for how he uses or abuses the rest of God's creation. There is no other explanation for our sense of harming nature and of feeling guilty for doing so. The videotape promoting Global Forum includes clips of speeches by Mother Teresa, Mikhail Gorbachev, and other admired leaders. In showing excerpts of talks given by various world leaders at Moscow, the narrator introduces Cornell University professor of astronomy and space sciences, Carl Sagan, with these auspicious words. Carl Sagan sounded a spiritual note. Really? That would be quite remarkable for a man who is an avowed materialist. Here is what Sagan said that evoked this comment and so impressed the Moscow audience. Quote, "As scientists, many of us have had profound experiences of awe and reverence before the universe. We understand that what is regarded as sacred is more likely to be treated with care and respect. Our planetary home should be so regarded." Unquote. It is astonishing that Christians seem quite pleased when a Carl Sagan sounds a spiritual note, as though they now hold a belief in common that unites them, when in fact they are as far apart as heaven and hell. Sagan is an atheist. His use of sacred is dishonest. In every sense a pagan, this high priest of cosmos worship has said, quote, "If we must worship a power greater than ourselves, does it not make sense to revere the sun and the stars?" Unquote. Of course it doesn't. Sagan is expressing the neo-pantheism of academia called eco-theology. Another of its advocates, Georgetown University professor Victor Furcus, says it, quote, "starts with the premise that the universe is God." Unquote. Like Sagan, he seems convinced that this belief will prevent the environmental exploitation of the universe. Even if it did, that would not make it true. But who cares about truth anymore? In comparison with the ecological crisis we face, the question of truth seems abstract and impractical. Moreover, to believe that the universe is God would not prevent environmental exploitation. On the contrary, it would encourage it. If the universe is God, then each of us is part of God and can do no wrong. Thus the very term exploitation of the universe would be meaningless. Sagan and Furcus and others who espouse their beliefs are simply restating the old paganism in new terms. It is astounding that so many evangelicals involved in the environmental movement seem pleased with talk of reverencing the cosmos, as though this had something in common with belief in the God of the Bible. They ought to know that Sagan's cosmos worship stands in total opposition to God and is the sworn enemy of the gospel. In Romans 1, Paul deals specifically with this age-old perversion of the truth about God, which is revealed in his creation, and he indicts with rebellion all those who worship the creation instead of its creator. There is no essential difference between an animist bowing before a stick or stone, which he credits with some spirit power, a witch worshiping nature, O mighty mother of us all, and university professors worshiping the atom or the cosmos as God. All are condemned as pagans, whether ancient or modern, ignorant or academically respected. Paul wrote, "For the invisible things of him, that is God, from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse, because that when they knew God, that is, from his creation, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature, that is, creation, more than, or instead of, the Creator." Romans 1, verses 20 through 25. What we are seeing is a repudiation of the Reformation and a return to a pagan orientation in relation to nature. It may at times be clothed in the weak Christian terms of Roman Catholicism to satisfy those who consider themselves to be Christians but who do not follow the Bible. It is part of the remarkable return to the religion of Rome, currently underway, along with a revival of that empire in preparation for the rise of Antichrist. This process is encouraged by the Pope's overt approval of paganism, and by Christians who join the environmental movement and work to save the planet without clearly declaring that the only hope for mankind is to be reconciled to God through Jesus Christ. The concerns of the environmentalists are genuine, yet their humanistic solutions and the homage they pay to nature are attempts to escape accountability to the personal God who created them. In the place of God's moral absolutes, one can then boast of the tolerance which Gorbachev says is the cornerstone of the New World Order. If we are not accountable to a personal God, but to nature, which knows no morals, then we can broad-mindedly condone homosexuality, abortion, and all manner of immorality, while at the same time priding ourselves that we are acting responsibly toward the environment. Paul goes on in Romans 1 to say rather bluntly, "And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding." Romans 1, verses 28 through 31. What an accurate description of today's world! Yes, we are guilty of polluting our environment, and ought to correct that evil. Yet many of those in the forefront of the crusade against environmental pollution are at the same time demanding greater freedom to pollute our souls and minds and those of our children. And to ease the conscience, they make periodic use of the new shibboleth, spiritual values, to show that they are not against religion and do have standards. Global Forum's newsletter, Shared Vision, declares that, quote, "We need to remember our natural origins and relearn how to love and respect nature. The love of our eternal parents, Earth Mother and Sky Father, is all-embracing." Unquote. The rejection of God the Father and His Son Jesus Christ could not be stated more plainly. Yet many who call themselves Christians are joining the move back to nature in order to show their ecumenical solidarity with all who are concerned about the well-being of our planet. In October 1988, a typical gathering of environmentalists from all over North America met in the Santa Cruz, California redwoods. It opened with a prayer by Native Americans thanking Grandfather God for all the good things you have put on Mother Earth. Speakers included a Baptist minister and ecumenical peace activist. The meeting closed with a community-building, earth-celebrating spiral dance ritual led by well-known writer, activist, and feminist Witch Starhawk, long associated with Catholic priest Matthew Fox at his Holy Names College in Oakland, California. Using similar pantheistic New Age language, John Paul II has promoted a kindred concept in numerous speeches. In his 1990 World Peace Day message on the Feast of the Holy Mother of God, the Pope said, quote, "A harmonious universe is a cosmos endowed with its own integrity, its own internal dynamic balance." Unquote. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Robert Runcie, has hosted in Canterbury Cathedral the Canterbury Festival of Faith and Environment, featuring joint prayer and worship with Buddhists, Muslims, Baha'is, Jews, Sikhs, and Hindus. The same mixture of paganism and Christianity that Constantine achieved is now being revived in preparation for the new Constantine, the Antichrist. Ecology and peace are the two great concerns that are sparking the new unity of all religions. Nothing else matters. Doctrinal beliefs are irrelevant. Such was the conclusion of the World Conference, Religious Workers for Lasting Peace, Disarmament, and Just Relations Among Nations, held in 1977 in Moscow. Delegates came from more than 100 countries and included Buddhists and Christians, Hindus, Judaists and Muslims, Sikhs and Shintoists, clergy and laity, teachers and high priests. The final statement signed by the conferees included the following, quote, "Our religious beliefs did not keep us apart, for we found our ethical concerns similar, and in our concern for the welfare of the whole humanity, we have found our common ground. We did not discuss our differences in doctrines, but how to find ways of striving together for peace and justice. May peace with justice triumph. May mankind be enabled to move towards the development of its full potential. May humanity be united in our common striving for peace." Unquote. It is astonishing not only what ungodly but what bizarre spirituality the world is willing to embrace in its search for peace and ecological salvation. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi claims that the practice by the many followers worldwide of his brand of Hindu yoga, which he calls transcendental meditation, is bringing peace to the world. Ideal communities of perfect peace are being established by the TM movement around the world. Maharishi's followers now credit their master and TM with bringing about the dramatic transformations sweeping Eastern Europe and the end of the Cold War. Who is to say that they are wrong? Indeed, scientific verification of Maharishi's claims has allegedly been made by numerous reputable university professors and scientists. If millions of people, many of them highly intelligent and well-educated, can be persuaded to believe the incredible claims of Maharishi, then it is not difficult to imagine the world worshiping the Antichrist. Satan's Messiah, with his seemingly unlimited psychic power, will be light years ahead of any of today's gurus. The Dalai Lama makes claims that are no less extravagant than Maharishi's. He, too, promises global peace through the practice of his own brand of yoga, which is similar to TM, but, according to him, far more powerful. It goes by the imposing title Tibetan Tantric Buddhist Deity Yoga. He promises to usher in global peace by turning mankind into little gods capable of creating the illusion of peace. That's all life is, he says, an illusion, and it's just a matter of creating a different one from the illusion of evil that we've all been captive to for so long. Does anyone take him seriously? The media does, and is kinder to him than it is to George Bush or Margaret Thatcher. And his efforts are also supposedly behind the recent turn of events in Eastern Europe. Admirers of the Dalai Lama credit the Kalachakra rituals he has been leading around the world with helping to create a spiritual atmosphere, which made possible the recent shredding of the Iron Curtain. So seriously are the Dalai Lama's global peace mission and deity yoga taken, and so highly is he regarded, that he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize on October 5, 1989. Pope John Paul II has his own theory about how global peace will come, a theory that gives no more credit to Jesus Christ and is every bit as bizarre as the peace plans of Maharishi or the Dalai Lama, yet is taken seriously by hundreds of millions of Roman Catholics. As we have earlier noted, the head of the Roman Catholic Church is fully convinced that global peace, when it comes, will be through daily recital of the Rosary and the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of the apparition of Mary, known as Our Lady of Fatima. At the same time, the Pope does not condemn other beliefs, but to serve his own agenda, credits the prayers and efforts of all religions as playing a part in the healing of planet Earth. Since it is a key factor in establishing world peace, ecumenism will be unstoppable. Those who criticize it on the basis of biblical truth will seem to be small-minded. After all, as Prince Philip suggests, it hardly seems practical, when the survival of our species on Earth hangs in the balance, to worry about heaven or hell. Environmental concerns and the need for peace at any price clearly take priority. And who will be concerned that the angel's message of peace on earth at the birth of Jesus Christ has lost its true meaning, and that what is being offered is a delusion that will ultimately lead to destruction? How amazing it is that for so many who talk about spiritual values, there is a total disregard of the fact that man is a spiritual being who continues to exist even after his material body is dead. The focus is upon time, while eternity is neglected, upon this life, while the life to come, whether in heaven or hell, is forgotten. We might well ask, paraphrasing Christ's solemn words, what shall it profit modern man if he gains an ecologically sound and peaceful world and loses his own soul? We can take comfort in God's promise that even earth's deserts will blossom like a rose when his Messiah rules from Jerusalem for 1,000 years. Even the millennium, however, will end in war, as multitudes who have enjoyed God's blessings rebel and seek to overthrow his kingdom. Our ultimate hope is the completely new and sinless universe of pure bliss for those who allow God to fit them for it by making them new creations in Christ Jesus. Satan's plan is intellectually more acceptable and far more appealing to human pride. In the days ahead, we will all be called upon to work together in promising alliances to forge an Eden-like new world of equality and sufficiency for all. Let us beware that we are not duped into joining the wrong side in a seemingly good cause.